Hello, this is Peter Bell, and I'm here with Mr. Blaine Monaghan. Hello, Blaine.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
Wonderful. One of the second time that we've had an interview, sir. First time going back almost 2 years ago now.
Yeah, that was with NVmining, which is still kicking around in the deserts of Egypt. It looks like there might finally be some good news coming from the Egyptian authorities with respect to changing mining laws. So that would be very much a positive, not only for Atom, but for Egypt itself.
And that was one of my first forays into Howe Street promotion and all the media that goes along with these junior mining companies. Have followed the sector for a long time, but was a very good experience to do some of that. That was the first interview I ever did, was with you and Mark Campbell, CEO of Aton, and you were in Egypt. It was very memorable for me.
Yeah, we were in the camp at the time, and I believe we did a Skype call, myself and Mark, from the camp in the deserts, in the eastern deserts of Egypt. It was, and they're still there, obviously, working away. But yeah, Egypt was a fascinating place, and we were very happy to be one of the first people you spoke to. And look at where you are today.
Yep, working hard, and you too, CEO position now, and still in the deserts, Nevada.
Yeah, I guess I just like the deserts, Peter.
Well, there's gold out there.
There is, and although I really enjoyed my time in Egypt, and I think there's great mineral potential in that country, until there is change on the mining law side, I think it's going to continue to be tough for companies that are operating there versus, say, Nevada, which I consider probably the world's best mining jurisdiction. When you look at the mining law, when you look at the infrastructure, when you look at its potential, it really is the place to be.
Yeah. Hashtag NVmining. There seems to be quite an active community of academic research, industrial research, crossover, knowledge transfer, a long history of best practices, I think, in mining in Nevada. You go a state over, and the history in California is a little bit more contentious and controversial. But I at least am not aware of such problems in Nevada, and that's the pole position that they have as a regional producer now.
Yeah, when you look at the Fraser Institute, it's ranked third now, but as I said, I believe it really is the world's best. And, it has a long, long history of mining. It's one of the principal industries, unlike California. So, I mean, there is a lot of love for mining in Nevada, and it accounts for essentially all of America's gold production. And we continue to see a lot of new discoveries in that state. There's been a number of M&A transactions this year. So it really is, if you are a mid-tier or a senior and you don't already have operations in that state, you're looking to get them. And I think we're seeing that more and more with the political risk aspect around the world continues to intensify, and you're seeing more and more companies come back to what they consider to be more stable jurisdictions.
And for a junior, like your company here, opportunity abounds. There's quite a history as well with the project, the flagship exploration project, sandwiched in around McEwen mining property. Good work communicating that messaging. What an opportunity.
It really is. So Fremont is a new company. It only listed in 2017, but the focus and the rationale was to acquire gold projects in Nevada, and since then we've acquired 6. But you're right, our 2 flagship projects, Gold Bar and Gold Canyon, are in what we call the Gold Bar Mining District. And that's where McEwen today is developing the Gold Bar project. So a little history on that. So we control the historic Gold Bar mine, which was mined by Atlas Mining from 1986 to 1994. So that was the principal deposit, the historic Gold Bar mine. Then they developed 5 satellite pits, where you have McEwen developing 4 of those pits today, and we have the 5th pit, Gold Canyon. So we have the historic Gold Bar mine, and we have the 5th satellite pit. So I think at some point in the future, it's going to make sense for Gold Canyon, which was that 5th pit, to be a part of McEwen's future operations in some shape or form.
It would seem to be clear, and as an opportunity in public markets to be able to speculate on a specific idea like that, not just a broad exposure to M&A that seems to be heating up, yes, indeed, but specific situations with a clear counterparty, and you're landlocked really within their surrounding position, right?
Yeah, Gold Canyon certainly is. I mean, it's a smaller claim. It is completely surrounded by McEwen. It doesn't have the size potential to be a standalone. It wasn't ever meant to be that way. It was one of the 5 satellite pits. So, exactly. I think it makes sense for that to be a part of McEwen's operation someday. But what we're doing at Gold Bar, which was the historic Gold Bar mine that produced about 300,000 ounces gold, we think we might have found a possible extension to that to the southeast that we're going to look to test in Q1. And that has the potential to be a standalone if indeed we are successful in intercepting mineralization in that drill program. So that could be the biggest game changer for the company over the next few quarters, is drilling Gold Bar, those targets to the southeast. And if we have success, well, I think it just really heats up.
Yeah. Well, and wonderful to have a few things going on there with, and 6 properties. I was not aware that it was that number. That's relatively large. Good for you.
Yeah, and I think the nice thing is when you're looking at a junior exploration company and you look at our property portfolio, exploration is inherently risky, but our property portfolio is less so in the sense because we have a mixture of both brownfield projects, which are Gold Bar and Gold Canyon, past producers, and some earlier stage greenfield exploration projects. So while we're looking to advance those brownfield projects in Q1 and looking to find extensions along strike or to depth, we have some earlier stage greenfield exploration projects that we're going to look to test in Q2, and particularly North Carlin, which I'm really excited about. We've delineated an excellent drill target. It's at the northern end of the Carlin trend, and if we're to have success there in drilling, it could return or generate those life-changing returns for shareholders.
Yeah, it was interesting. I heard you say that at the Metals Investor Forum recently.
It makes sense for us to go out there and conduct some riskier exploration, drill these targets to have life-changing returns for shareholders.
It's always sobering to think that does happen around here. One of the companies that was speaking at the conference, they were saying that we have $1.25 million cash in our treasury, and that's a lot of money for us right now. They were saying, and we plan on spending it all. And that company was sporting a $100 million valuation.
Oh, wow.
And just illustrating that to people who may not be familiar with Howe Street and junior mining stocks, and through the looking glass, indeed, and exciting to think what kind of project generation partners you could find on the back end of some success at some of these greenfield projects as well.
Yeah, and we've had some people think that perhaps you should focus more in on your brownfields and maybe look to partner up on the brownfield projects. But as far as I'm concerned, first and foremost, we're an exploration company, so you have to take the risks. But I think we've mitigated those risks because of the brownfield, which makes it even that much more sense. You say, okay, well, we have some budget for the brownfield. We're going to make some budget for the greenfield, because ultimately we're trying to look to make a new discovery. And you can't play it safe in mineral exploration. Sometimes you have to swing for the fence. And as long as people understand the risks, that's why they're buying the shares. They are looking for those potential huge returns.
And it's funny to consider also that it's not just us diehard speculators who buy these shares, but there's something to be said about majors and other producers doing exploration by way of acquisition rather than spending the money themselves, and thinking about that in comparison to what you've got with McEwen around you there, the potential to find win-win. They're going to want to see some good exploration work from you to come in on any of those other projects. That's sure. And so then, as a new company, and for you as CEO, right, this is a great opportunity to show them what you can do, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, there were a lot of reasons why I signed on to Fremont, and one, as I've talked about at length, is jurisdiction. The other is the projects and the team. So we've got a great team, great projects, great jurisdiction. It's a great opportunity for me, and I joined it because I feel this company has great potential moving forward, and I want to be a part of that. And when you look at the game plan as far as looking to find potential to Gold Canyon and Gold Bar, but looking at some of these other earlier exploration plays, I think we're just in great shape and great position, and I don't think we're expensive. So, I'm sure most companies will say that, and I would agree. The markets have been quite challenging this last while, but I think we're going to close the gap between what I feel we should be valued at and our current market capitalization.
Well, and you as CEO, you have some obligation to finance prudently. But for those of us who may be on the buy side, sorry, but we want a discount as well, right? So
yeah. Well, it's always challenging when you look at, and we are doing a financing right now, and trying to balance doing your best to minimize dilution, while at the same time potential buyers want the maximum possible discount or a full warrant in the longest possible term, and we have to try to determine and find a way to strike the balance that's going to be fair to existing shareholders, but at the same time be attractive to new shareholders. So that's always a conversation that takes place with the board and our current shareholders, and when you're actually talking to potential new shareholders, what they might be looking for. So it is a bit of a dance, and then ultimately you try to find a number that everybody's going to work with, and you move forward and try to close it as quickly as you can.
Well, and I wonder about Fremont being new, existing shareholder base. Do you have a good sense who they are, where they are?
Yeah, we have a very good sense. We can account for, I'd say, at least 60% of the stock that's out. Because it's a new company, there isn't that much shares issued, about 44 million shares. Management owns approximately 25%. And it was a reverse takeover. So the broker whose shell it was and their clients own about another 25%. And a large U.S. fund owns just shy of 10%. So I could think of others as well, but right off the top of my head, you've got basically 60% of the stock tied up amongst just a few people.
Yeah, well, and control is an essential issue for illiquid junior mining companies, and the fireworks may happen in the secondary market, but the foundations are laid in the primary market, and if that base, continues to support the company on an ongoing basis, right, that can make for one of those parties that everybody wants to get into and they can't get into it. It's
crowd. We're very lucky also, and somebody asked me this question the other day, and I think it's a very good question when you look at current market volatility. He said, so what would happen if we saw a crash like we did back in 2008, 2009? He said, what would happen to your stock? And I said, well, like most stocks back at that time, I mean, we all cratered. It was very, very difficult, but we all came back. But one of our serious advantages, or one of our big abilities to do what a lot of other juniors can't do right now, is that we can self-finance. So Dennis Moore and Alan Carter, the founders, recently sold an NSR to Eldorado for close to, or approximately, $10 million. So in the worst case scenario that the market was to crash and junior share prices went in the toilet, we could batten down the hatches and self-finance, which is always heartening to know. And that also explains why insider ownership is so strong.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning Alan. I was not aware his involvement there. The founder, was that the Priveco or the...
He would have been the founder alongside Dennis Moore and Clay Newton, who's our VP Exploration down in Nevada. So this was their idea a number of years ago to acquire gold assets in Nevada. And this was after both Alan and Dennis had a lot of experience in South America. And frankly, Dennis was looking to move to a different jurisdiction, one where he felt he could leverage his expertise to come up with some more discoveries like he did in South America. So, when I say we have a mine-finding team, that's really Dennis Moore. He's been behind 4 million ounces gold, and, he really wants another one.
Yeah. In Nevada, what a place to be looking for it. Mm-hmm. Any sense for a spike in exploration dollars there over the last few years? I wonder about some of the statistics. They seem to be a little bit delayed, a year or so from some of the government reports, but quite comprehensive statistics I've seen in the past on activities and job creation, everything, the multipliers.
Yeah. Well, I think despite the fact that Nevada is such a great jurisdiction to explore and develop mines, the activity level is still quite low. I track probably a couple dozen companies that purport to be active in Nevada, And really, of those couple dozen, 2 or 3 dozen, there's really just a handful that are actually really conducting any meaningful exploration. So despite being what I consider to be the world's best jurisdiction, there's surprisingly there isn't a large amount of real exploration taking place in state. And despite the fact also you've seen, I think, 4 M&As there this year. So it's, I think that just speaks to that the market is still very challenging for juniors.
Well, and who can understand a business where the purpose is to go and spend the money and then come back and ask for more?
Yeah,
drilling holes in the ground, no less.
It's certainly a different business, but it's a business I think most Canadians are pretty familiar with, because I mean, at the end of the day, we are hewers of wood and drawers of water, and that's what our wealth has been created on. However, I mean, over the last few years, all that speculative capital has been cannibalized by, cryptos and blockchain and marijuana. So one of our other advantages being exploring for gold in Nevada is that we can actually chase dollars out of the U.S. and try to target U.S. investors that haven't had the same opportunities as your average Canadian retail investor, but who understands gold and understands Nevada. They get that.
Even if understanding exploration is always a stretch.
Yes, it is. I think most people just think that you are going out there and you're going to mine gold, and you really do have to explain that as an exploration company, your goal is actually to find a deposit and ultimately sell it.
Yeah. Well, and with things heating up, there may be ways for you to sell things before you sell the farm. People may be bullish on buying royalties if there's some preliminary success, or there's a broad range of deals that can be done.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways you can create shareholder value for a company like ours. I mean, you could be looking at project level sales. I mean, maybe Gold Canyon might be a straight up sale. It could be M&A. If we have success at Gold Bar, I think we'd be a pretty attractive M&A candidate. You can look to enter into joint venture agreements on some of your other properties that you may not want to commit any exploration dollars to. And then, of course, there's the whole royalty stream models, et cetera, et cetera. But our goal right now really is to raise what is required and try to minimize dilution so we can carry out the work we want to hopefully come up with some new discoveries.
Yeah, the wildest thing that I wonder about is if some of the most speculative money in the world, some of the smaller stock markets out there have huge volatility, right? And there's a global audience for really risky investments. Where they are, it's somewhat unclear. How to reach them, it's a question mark. But if you could, at the project level even, there's got to be a lot of people out there who would want to buy early stage exploration ground in Nevada.
Yeah, there is. And I think that's a real challenge for a lot of junior gold exploration companies, is that it's the availability of capital. At times it's easier to get your hands on than others. There are times when people actually knock on your door and want to give you money, but it certainly hasn't been those sort of times in a number of years. It requires a much more proactive approach on management's behalf to identify potential investors and to crystallize it. But there are pockets of capital all around the world. And that's where it comes down to the contacts of the executive team to have identified them and actually have a product that they might be interested in. Do you actually have something that could become a mine or a discovery that someone might be interested in buying? That's what you always have to consider as an executive. I'm not interested in something that's small. I'm interested in something that's big that I can sell. That's the story.
Yeah. Well, as the chief promoter here.
It is, and I really think that's the CEO's role. I mean, the CEO's role, especially in the junior exploration game, is to be the chief communicator, the chief promoter, the chief cheerleader. You have to be out there hustling 24/7, getting your story in front of as many people as possible, because ultimately it is a numbers game. But it has to be compelling. It has to have fundamentals behind it.
Yeah, certainly. It's an amazing business that combines the wild speculation and the hard science.
Oh, it really is, and they're two distinct things. And I say this to people quite often. A lot of companies are run by the scientists, and this is no disrespect to the geologists or the science part, because I hold them in very high respect and regard. But it's a different job managing exploration and identifying potential targets versus promoting a company, which I think the real job is, and it's the rare geologist that is actually very good at that. And even when he is, then it means he's still going to have someone to manage that exploration side, because you can't do both. I'm convinced of that. They're two separate roles, and you need two different people doing it.
Absolutely. No, it's certainly the case. 24 hours in a day. To that, thank you for 20 minutes of your time here.
Thank you, Peter.
Goodbye.